Sup, guys? It's Toad. I'm back with you. As always, it is Tyrant'S Day, as I put in the description, President's Day, whatever you want. Although Donald Trump is our president now, man, let's maybe we should call him at least a little bit lesser of a tyrant with some of the stuff that he's doing, maybe. Although a lot of people disagree with me on that, I don't care. He's doing some things that I like at the very least. But this is not a political show. This is a college basketball show right now because it's the only sport in action, pretty much. So that's what we're going to talk about. Yesterday, 0-1-1. I mean, what can you do? Ohio State, they were behind most of the game. They had a chance to tie the game. They had a final possession in the game where they pretty much got a wide open shot, a 2-point attempt to try to tie the game, and whoever the shooter was, airballed it. So that's just great, and they lose by 2. Then St. John's was behind for a while earlier in their game, and they turned it around, took the lead in the second half, had the lead for most of the second half, but never were really able to push that lead, although it got down the wire, and they're up 6, and I'm like, okay, just give me an intentional foul, get across that 7-point threshold, and then let's end it there and let's get the win. But that didn't happen. They wound up landing exactly 6 with a push on that one. So 0-1-1, and the result, because I had money line on Ohio, the loss was by 2 points or 3 points, if you want to call it that, and the push obviously was a push. So 1 point away from being a win. So not what you really want, but I don't necessarily think that I misread those games or anything like that. I also forgot to congratulate the winners of the All-Star festivities there from the NBA, although I don't even know how the NBA All-Star game works anymore, because it used to be East versus West. It used to be you knew what was going on, and yeah, the teams wouldn't really play defense, and they'd go up and down the court, but still, at least you know it's the best guys from the East against the best guys from the West for the most part, and they'll at least put on a show. But now it's they have the team captains, and now there are 4 teams. It's Team Shaq has Tatum and Curry on it. I don't even know, man. I have no idea how this works now. I don't even care to find out. But congratulations to Mac McClung. I think I called him Matt at one point. Mac McClung, the dunk specialist, who was, I believe, the first three-peat dunk champion ever, and he never even plays otherwise. All he does, he's only in the NBA to do the dunk contest. That's the only reason why he's rostered. It's insane. It's ridiculous. And then the three-point contest, I mean, I did like those 3 guys that I mentioned. I thought one of them was going to be the winner, but the odds made it look like it was definitely wide open, and Tyler Hero was the winner of it out of Miami. So congratulations to those guys. Let's go into college basketball here, man. I'm not going to talk about many of these games because a lot of it is MEAC and SWAC, where I very rarely ever touch those conferences, the 2 worst conferences, although the Patriot League is really bad as well, and sometimes I bet in that league more so. It seems like there are more situations to find there for whatever reason. They have some games in action today as well, and the Southland, so McNeese is playing. We only have a few big games, really. One game that we do have was postponed to today, which I don't even see it on the schedule here for today. I think it's probably still on ESPN's schedule for yesterday, but Northern Iowa at Murray State got postponed yesterday because there was a power outage. And I think the power outage affecting Murray State's campus is still happening. So I think this game got moved to some other location nearby. It's still in the Nashville area, which I'm pretty sure Murray State is in Nashville. This game will be in Nashville, but I think it's a neutral site game, really a semi-home game for Murray State because their campus doesn't have power. How is that going to affect this game? No clue. Northern Iowa, 60% of tickets, 55% of the cash. Murray State up from a 1-point favorite with reduced juice to a 1-point favorite with more juice. So the market read would say Murray State. Oh, Murray State is up here, actually. All these games are in the nighttime, by the way, except for Maryland Eastern Shore at Hawaii. You get that awesome isolated MEAC game there at 3 p.m. Eastern. Everyone's going to want to watch that one, man. Northern Iowa, I pointed out yesterday, they are in a road revenge spot, though, and they are the better team, so I don't really know that I would want to fade them. But now with this postponement, I don't know what's going to happen. Does that mean Murray State is in less of a good situation because they're not going to play in their actual arena? Does it even matter? Who knows? So this this game obviously is not a game I'm going to touch, but that's what's going on in that game. Let's see. McNeese, Southeast Louisiana. As far as Southland goes, this one could be pretty good. I think these are pretty much the top two teams in the Southland, even though I know McNeese is far and away the best team in that conference for the second straight year. But Southeast Louisiana is one, or Southeastern Louisiana is one team in that conference that could actually give them some problems in a game like this, especially when it's at Southeastern Louisiana at the Pride Roofing University Center, man. I don't even... Don't ask me what the name of that is. I have no idea. I guess it's sponsored by a gay roofing company. I have no idea. In Louisiana, though, so it must be sponsored by the Libertarian Party of Louisiana. I have absolutely no idea. But I think that game should at least be somewhat interesting. McNeese is like a 7.5-point road favorite there. They are definitely the better team. But again, this is one particular game where they're up against one of the other better teams in the conference at least. So it could be a more competitive game than most of theirs are. They're down from 8 to 7.5 in that one. And it is, a true road game for them. And then finally, once we get to the night, like the later night slate, we do have a few games, and I have two plays, like I said. Not going to be playing this game in Duke at Virginia. Duke, they're just starting to run away with the ACC, man. Really the only competition that they have in the ACC. Clemson is the next best team. We know Clemson did beat them once. Louisville will make the tournament, and then Wake Forest, SMU, I don't know, North Carolina, looking like they're maybe not going to make the tournament at this point. Wake and SMU just fought each other, actually, or played each other, I guess I should say. And I think Wake pulled off the road upset in that one. So Wake maybe adding a little bit something to their resume there. I believe in my bracketology that I just updated, I believe I still have Wake and SMU both out right now, though. If I remember correctly. They're either out or they're in the first four. I forget. Duke is coming off beating Stanford and putting up over 100 points. Now they got to go out on the road to face Virginia. And they got Illinois up next, man. So they have to play an out-of-conference game. And this Illinois team is going to be the best team that Duke faces since they were playing other out-of-conference games, man. Like, Illinois, not joking at all, Illinois is better than every team in the ACC besides Duke. So, this may be a big game. This is, I guess, it's probably the ACC Big Ten challenge, and it seems like it's not going to be much of a challenge for the Big Ten, except Illinois draws the short straw and has to play Duke. But I don't know where that game's going to be. That game might be at Duke. If it's at Duke, it's definitely not going to be. No, it's at Madison Square Garden, so it's a neutral site game. Interesting. So, in that particular game, it might actually be more competitively lined. I know Illinois, they've been really struggling recently. They just lost to Michigan State when they were favored at home. Illinois had the lead in that game. They didn't score for the last 8.5 minutes of the game or something. Michigan State really good, though. Anyway, Duke, that's going to be a big game, I think, and their biggest opponent that they faced since they started conference play. So maybe they'll actually get some competition in that one. And Illinois is a big pacing mismatch. Well, I should talk about it when that game actually happens. But Illinois plays fast. Duke plays slow. You know who also plays slow, though, is Virginia. And that's where Duke is going here. So this looks like a little bit of maybe a sandwich spot. If Duke's coming off winning by a big margin and scoring 100 points, and they have that game against Illinois coming up next, they might not totally pay attention to this Virginia team, even though I know Virginia kind of has that name around them in college basketball, but they've been pretty bad this year. I don't want to come in and try to play Virginia either, though, because they're coming off a big revenge rivalry win over Virginia Tech after they lost at Virginia Tech, or they lost at home to Virginia Tech, excuse me. So it was a road revenge game there. Virginia, nice win there. So that was a big game for them. Of course, this is going to be a big game, too. They're going to step up when Duke is coming into their place, but it's two big games in a row. They've actually started playing a little bit better recently, though. They've won 4 of their last 5 games, 2 of them on the road. They won at Pitt by margin, although Pitt was in a bad spot there. One at Virginia Tech. Actually, 3 out of those 5 were road games, and they won all 3. So Virginia, maybe they're starting to play a little bit better and figure something out again. I'm not going to play this If you force me, I would slightly lean to Virginia here. Duke is down from 14.5 to 13.5 with juice. I mean, obviously Duke is laying a ton of points on the road, and given the styles that these two teams play, where they both play slow basketball, especially Virginia, it's going to be tough to cover a line like that when points are at a premium. You don't really want to lay that many points on the road. You know Duke, you know the odds makers are going to jack up the price on Duke a little bit too, so you're likely not getting any value at that number on Duke either. So it would be take the points with Virginia or pass, and I am passing this one. The line is up on the total from 131 to 133, juiced to the over. So some money looks like it's coming in on the over. I don't know if that makes sense either. I mean, I could see this game being, again, a slow-paced game because that's what both teams like to do. Virginia, I believe they've been struggling defensively this year, though, and they're actually better on the offensive end, similar to like Villanova, who plays really slow, but their offense is better. Actually, Virginia's been not very good on either, never mind. But whatever the case is, yeah, I mean, Virginia may struggle to score, though, so that could be a problem. Well, we'll see. 55% of tickets, 57% of the cash on Duke. Again, because it's so many points and both teams play so slowly, I would still look to take the points, but that's not going to be a play for me. Last two games I'm going to talk about, both games going at night at 9 and 10 p.m. I'm going to be on both of these games. Kansas State plus 2.5 is going to be one of my plays. I'm fading the market in this one, even though I'm also fading the public here. Utah is up from 1 to 2.5 right now. 80% of tickets, 96% of the cash on them. We'll see what the market looks like later tonight, though, because right now it looks like money has come in on Utah, and I do not agree with it. I mean, it's just simple. Utah just pulled off that huge win at home over Kansas. That was a big-time win, man, over one of the named teams in the Big 12. I mean, Utah's now in the Big 12. They've been having a really bad season for the most part, and they finally got, like, that was like their signature win, man. They had not even really come close to beating any of these teams, which kind of tells you how not very good Kansas is, because all these other teams, Baylor, Iowa State, Houston, they all absolutely embarrassed this Utah team. What does Kansas do? Yeah, they go in and lose to Utah. Oh, man. So Utah, they also had a little bit of an extra, like emotional high in that game because Madsen on Utah set their school 3-point record, which I guess was the number of threes in his career, something like that. Not to be confused with whatever this was with Jizzle James with his career best performance on Cincinnati against Utah, I guess, in the previous game. One of the most ridiculous names in college basketball, by the way, Jizzle James on Cincinnati. And Cincinnati keeps not making the tournament, so you can't make a pun name on that or anything like that for your bracket entry. You could, but it would be way more hilarious if Cincinnati was in the tournament. Anyway, Utah's coming up that giant win. Now they're just staying at home, probably basking in it. In college basketball, when you have a huge win like that at home, and then you stay at home, you have your next game at home, the campus goes crazy, dude. The campus is like hyping you up. You feel like big man on campus. Obviously, I know, because this was my experience in college. No, but I would have to imagine that if you're one of the members of that team, people recognize you when you're walking around. Everybody's pumping you up. You're feeling great. But yeah, you got to turn around and play another game like 2 days later, man. So I don't think that's a good spot for Utah, excuse me. Meanwhile, Kansas State, coming into this game, they lost in their last game, and I played BYU on Saturday night there because Kansas was in the letdown spot. They just pulled off they had a string of great games, really turning it on, beating Iowa State, although I don't know if Iowa State had their, I forget what the guy's name is. They have that one, best player that they have. He was injured for a little while, and that Iowa State was struggling without him, and now he's back. But whatever. Kansas State pulled off that win. They didn't suffer the letdown, and I lost on Arizona State, barely. Then Kansas State came back, and they beat Kansas in their big rivalry, which was also a revenge game for them. Then they beat Arizona, but they caught Arizona's sandwich spot. So I said, all right, I'm going to fade Kansas State now because they're going out to this unfamiliar venue, going out to elevation into BYU. I laid the points with BYU. I hit it. I got it right. But now I think this is a little bit of a better spot for Kansas State, man, because they lost that first game. It does break their momentum, but I'm not as worried about that here because I think Utah's in such a letdown spot. Kansas State is getting points here. They're used to being in high elevation now because they already played one game. I mean, a lot of times having back-to-back games like this would be tough to do on the road. But when you play bad in that first game, and that game also does at least let you adjust to the environment like this, adjust to the higher elevation, I think that's going to help you a little bit coming into this next game. And this is also going to be a step down in class because, I mean, like I mentioned, look at all these other teams they played. Utah's a worse team than all those teams in that stretch. Iowa State, Kansas, Arizona, BYU, even Arizona State. I don't think any of those teams are worse than Utah. So it'll be a step down in class for Kansas State here as well, even though, yeah, it's a step down in class for Utah as well. But still, people are also probably going to look at this and, well, I don't know, just see how both teams just beat Kansas. And I don't know, maybe the public won't have a feeling about that, but they might give like a little bit more credence to the Utah one, maybe, because Kansas State is 1-1 against Kansas, and Utah beat them in their only game against them. I don't know, but I think the spot is better for Kansas State. I think they're more adjusted now. I think it's a bounce-back spot. The travel is not that much for them. They get to readjust, adjust some things after that bad loss there. Yeah, I'm going to be on Kansas State in this one, and Kansas State is the better team, as the odds makers are telling you, because Utah's not getting a full home court here. Ken Palm does have Utah as the faster-paced team, but he's got Kansas State even lower than Utah in luck index. Both teams are low in luck index. Excuse me, I was on Northwestern there. Kansas State, he's got 283rd in luck with Utah 216, but still, he's telling you Kansas State is definitely better than they look. Kansas State is the better of these two defenses as well. He actually has them better on both offense and defense. Both teams actually somewhat balanced, but better offensively and defensively on the Kansas State side. A little bit more significantly so on the defensive side. So you're getting the better defense getting points as well here. Kansas State does like to play a little bit faster, although they're kind of in the slower half of tempos. Utah likes to play faster, and Kansas State is in the slower half of tempo. So Utah may be able to speed this game up a little bit, but Kansas State doesn't like to play extraordinarily slow either. I think they can kind of play at either tempo, so I don't think that's that much of a factor either. Kansas State has also faced the more difficult schedule at 23rd in schedule strength. So, yeah, I'll be on Kansas State for all those reasons. And then my last play of the day is on Baylor, money line, minus 120. I don't know if you can find a better number than that. I wouldn't beat you up too much if you laid the 1.5 on Baylor either. The line is up from 1 with juice to 1.5 with reduced juice. 63% of tickets, 91% of the cash. So it looks like the money is coming in on Baylor here. And this is technically one of those spots where we get one of those unranked home favorites here, man. And I think this is a good one to play. I think Arizona is not in a good spot here. They're coming off a brutal game, man. They've had a few big games in a row. They beat Texas Tech. That was a huge matchup. Went on the road in a sandwich spot. They did lose that game to Kansas State. They came back and they played really well against Houston, but Houston's very, very good. Houston was able to control the pace of that game. That wound up being a slow-paced game like Houston wants, not what Arizona really wants. And Houston wound up being able to beat them with a really good second half. Arizona was winning a lot of this game, and they were winning all throughout the middle of the game. Never could really get a huge margin, though. They were up 7 with under 10 minutes to go, and then they totally fell apart, and they actually didn't score for, what was that, like a few minutes there? Yeah, they didn't score for almost 4 minutes of game time there, Arizona, after being up 48-41. Houston went on a 12-0 run to take the lead, and then it was really close still right near the end. This is a big, big game for Arizona, man. Now they're coming up with that, and Houston likes to grind you and beat you up physically. Now Arizona has to go from, they were playing at home, now they have to go to Waco, Texas, which not really a familiar venue for Arizona as they're new to the Big 12, so they're not used to going to some of these venues. So it's a little bit more of a difficult spot for them. Baylor, I believe they're just staying at home, if I'm not mistaken. They just won at home against West Virginia, and they lost to Houston, so the public might be looking at this and thinking, well, wait a minute. Arizona beat Texas Tech. Baylor lost to them. Arizona played way closer than Baylor did against Houston. And now you're asking me to pick the winner here? And obviously, it's going to be that ranked Arizona team, right? Again, I think it's misleading. The books are almost begging you to take Arizona here, and that is not what I'm going to do, obviously. Baylor, again, they're staying at home. They got that win over West Virginia, which not a huge win. I mean, West Virginia's really been sliding, and they're borderline to even make the tournament now. And Baylor was actually a 9.5-point favorite in this game, and they had to go into overtime to win it. So I think Baylor might have been looking ahead a little bit. Yes, they went into overtime, so will they be a little bit more tired? I don't know. I think that kind of gets negated by the fact that Arizona got beat up by Houston in a close game, and now they have to travel. I'm not as worried about Baylor playing one overtime at home. And again, I think that actually helps in one way because Baylor, as a big favorite, almost lost at home. So I think that sets up a much, much nicer spot for Baylor to refocus. They're going to show up for this game against Arizona, man. And it's in-season revenge because they already went to Arizona and lost by double digits. So it's possible Baylor is the team that takes the game more seriously for that reason as well. Baylor is the play in that one. And we do have Four Nations hockey today as well. I don't believe the NBA is back in action yet, right? If it is, I'm going to have more to talk about right now. And I haven't even looked at NBA because I assumed NBA wasn't back today. No, they're not back until Wednesday. The All-Star break continues, and then there's only one game on Wednesday. All right. NHL, we do have the Four Nations. It moves to Boston. I'm not planning on going to these. I mean, one of these games in a few hours, but if it was USA against Canada, I would be very tempted to go to that game. But because it isn't, I'm not going to go to these games. You got Canada and Finland. Canada is obviously a huge favorite in this game. But Canada, they're coming up that big game against the U.S. And as we know, the U.S. wound up winning the game 3-1. But I think there was an empty net at the end. It was a close game. There were a ton of fights in that game. Meanwhile, Finland, as I mentioned, I thought Finland was in a decent spot with some decent value there against Sweden, and Finland actually pulled off the big upset in that game against Sweden. So both of these teams are kind of in fade spots here, with Canada coming off that pretty brutal game against the U.S. Finland played earlier. The Canada-U.S. game was like the primetime night game, so Finland has like a little bit more rest. Finland, and all these teams have the same travel, going from Montreal to Boston. Finland, coming off a huge upset, though, so I wouldn't trust Finland in this spot, really. If I was going to play this game, I mean, probably it would be just laying the puck line with Canada. I don't really see Finland being able to hold it in this game. I think they'll probably wind up faltering and being too tired by the end of it, but we'll see. We will see what happens in that game. Kind of like what happened between them and the U.S. Then U.S. and Sweden. This game, I would be more tempted to look Sweden's way in this one, even though this is in the U.S. now, baby. And I can tell you from going to Bruins games between the U.S. teams and Canada teams, between Bruins and Leafs, Bruins and Canadians, the Boston crowd chants USA, USA. They boo the Canadian anthem. Yeah, I mean, we do it up in Boston, baby. It happened again when I went to the Bruins-Leafs game in the playoffs last year. It was the same thing, man. And then videos of it went out online, and people were like, look at this racist Boston crowd chanting USA, USA. I'm like, yeah, that's our country. Shut up. Chanting USA against the Canadian team. Yeah, and the Bruins won that game, by the way. Anyway, yeah, U.S. and Sweden. The U.S., because they're coming off that big game against Canada between the top two teams in the Four Nations event here in the U.S. I mean, there were the huge fights early in the game. These teams do not like each other. U.S. pulled off the big win. I could see them taking a little bit of a step back in this game, and Sweden is coming off that ugly loss, being upset by Finland. And this is the round-robin round, man. Sweden, I think Sweden doesn't have a win yet, right? So I think they're on the verge of I don't know the way that this works, man, but I think Sweden, because they're 0-2 now, I think they're on the verge of elimination if they don't get a win here. I think if they go 0-3, they're going to be out, because I think only the top two teams are going to advance, although everybody expects that it's going to be USA and Canada, which it looks like it's probably going to be, assuming Canada's going to win this game against Finland. That would be the case, but Sweden, I mean, they need a win to even stay alive here. So I think you're probably going to see Sweden go all out here. They actually do play good defense, and the U.S. has pretty good goaltending. So you could see this game being significantly lower scoring than the other game. I don't know what the totals are listed on this one, but that's what I would expect. So could be some value in Sweden in a better spot in what might be a closer game in with the team that has probably actually the best defense in in the Four Nations. So that's how I look at those games. That's going to do it for me, man. A little bit of a under half-hour show here for President's Day, Tyrant'S Day. We got 2 plays, college basketball, both of them. Kansas State plus 2.5. Baylor, money line, -120. That's going to do it for me. I'm Toad, Tower Gang Toad on Twitter. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. You get bonus content, live pre-show, live post-show. We do it up, baby. Throw us some support. It's the most offensive comedy podcast in existence. And we'll be back with a new episode Wednesday night, 9-11 p.m. Eastern. That's going to do it. And we definitely have some stuff to talk about, baby. Elon impregnating the world is probably going to be one of those things. All right, that's going to do it. Peace out, guys.